Mark Sanchez, now 38 years old, was a former NFL football quarterback and then became a Fox NFL football commentator. Sanchez is a young former professional athlete, and he allegedly attacked the old, apparently frail senior citizen in an alleyway.
We have added more serious charges against Mr. Sanchez. We have filed a felony charge of battery, which contains a penalty of 1 to 6 years.
We're going to recount that odd event, breaking down his bizarre psychology and revealing what it feels like to be stabbed in the abdomen, like Sanchez had apparently experienced. Now, let's get started. Before this event, Mark Sanchez was mostly known for what became known as the viral butt fumble.
And then Sanchez gets hit, the ball is loose.
Initially, it was reported that Sanchez was the victim of a stabbing.
Former NFL quarterback and Fox Sports analyst Mark Sanchez is hospitalized after being stabbed in Indianapolis overnight. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition.
However, as more information was released, it seems that Sanchez was actually the perpetrator.
This is a situation that didn't need to happen and should not have happened. The allegations involved here involve a 38-year-old former professional athlete becoming involved in a physical confrontation with a 69-year-old man who is just attempting to do his job.
Mark Sanchez was involved in an incident that, to be honest, we're all still trying to wrap our heads around.
On Saturday, October 4th, just before 12:30 a.m., Mark Sanchez was in Indianapolis, Indiana, in order to commentate the Raiders vs. Colts NFL football game on Sunday, October 5th, for the NFL on Fox.
Sanchez, who played 8 seasons in the NFL, was in Indianapolis to be part of the broadcast team for Sunday's Colts-Raiders game.
Chris Myers, along with Brady Quinn, who is stepping in for Mark Sanchez.
Sanchez was allegedly intoxicated with alcohol while oddly doing wind sprints in the alleyway. Wind sprints are short maximal effort running for 50 to 100 meters, followed by easy walking.
Police say Sanchez approached a 69-year-old truck driver in the loading dock of a downtown Indianapolis hotel. The driver told police Sanchez smelled of alcohol and his speech was slurred.
According to reports, Sanchez encountered 69-year-old Perry Tole, commercial delivery truck driver, who was parked near the alley.
Perry Tole is a remarkable guy, as we learned in 2021. Ironically, Tole told us 4 years ago what it was like to care for a loved one after an attack by a stranger.
They don't take into consideration the consequences that families like ours have to deal with.
Then Meter Maid Sanchez allegedly told the truck driver Perry Tole that he was not allowed to park there and demanded he move his truck.
IMPD thinks Saturday morning's knife brawl was over Sanchez's anger about where Tole parked his truck in the alley.
When Perry, the driver, refused, Sanchez reportedly became aggressive.
Court records say Sanchez climbed into the truck and prevented the driver from calling for help before there was a fight, and Sanchez shoved the driver. Sanchez ended up pepper sprayed and stabbed multiple times after the driver told police he thought to himself, "This guy's trying to kill me."
Then Mark Sanchez allegedly began following the driver Perry Tole and then physically attacked him.
According to court documents, surveillance footage allegedly shows the former quarterback grabbing and throwing a 69-year-old truck driver in an alleyway.
The 69-year-old truck driver, of course, feared for his safety and allegedly pepper sprayed Sanchez.
But the former NFL star just wiped it away.
Despite that, Sanchez allegedly continued after him, naturally prompting the truck driver to allegedly defend himself with a knife.
When the former quarterback advanced again, Tole thought, "This guy is trying to kill me," and stabbed Sanchez multiple times.
Sanchez was allegedly stabbed in the abdomen several times, which we see the aftermath here in this video surveillance footage, and underwent emergency surgery.
He was confronted by an ex-professional athlete who, it appears, allegedly and quite literally picked on the wrong guy.
While the 69-year-old truck driver reportedly suffered at least one deep laceration across his whole left side of his face.
His entire cheek is like sliced up here. Once again, he's 69 years old.
So what leads Sanchez, a former star NFL football player, to get into a physical altercation with a 69-year-old senior citizen? And you're surely wondering, what the heck is psychologically going on with Sanchez? First, let's begin with what may have been happening neurologically. The prefrontal cortex cortex here is the region of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and regulating emotion. However, what do you think happens when someone is intoxicated? Right, this region of the brain becomes significantly impaired. It becomes harder to weigh consequences, suppress aggression, or even walk away from conflict. This explains why bar fights are unfortunately a thing.
I said, "Excuse me, sir, would you care to step outside?"
Alcohol doesn't just lower your inhibitions, it also messes with your emotional perception. It makes a person more likely to misinterpret neutral or minor interactions as disrespectful or hostile. For someone already feeling insecure or disrespected like Sanchez, as we'll discuss later, alcohol can turn a minor challenge, like Perry's truck allegedly parked wrong, into a personal attack. And when the amygdala, the part of the brain that detects threat, becomes more active under alcohol, and the prefrontal cortex, it's the part of the brain that tells you this isn't worth it, goes offline, aggression becomes more likely.
It's a special position that I'm in, and I'm just trying to set the right example.
So if Sanchez was already dealing with ego vulnerability, a post-career identity shift, or built-up frustration, alcohol didn't just dull his judgment, it probably intensified his emotions and made him much more likely to act on them. As I've gotten older, I live by the saying that there's nothing good that usually happens after 12 a.m. Or maybe it's just my excuse for having an early bedtime. Have you noticed that you also go to sleep earlier and earlier as you've gotten older?
After sleepless nights and lots of prayer, I have decided that I will forego a 5th year at USC and declare my eligibility for the 2009 NFL Draft.
Former professional athletes often experience what is called in psychology as role exit crisis. But why do you think that happens? Right, for years their identity, purpose, and daily structure are intricately tied to their role on the team.
It has been my dream since I was a youngster, just a little kid, to play in the NFL.
Everything from their sleep cycle to their social life is defined by their sport. And more than that, it gives them a clear answer to their identity of who am I. When that ends, especially abruptly, many struggle to replace the sense of meaning and validation they received from competition. However, upon retirement, the applause they received and constant reinforcement is suddenly gone. For some, they manage to shift gears into roles as coaches, TV analysts, parents, or entrepreneurs. But others feel stuck. The world moves on and they're left holding on to something that no longer exists. That kind of psychological displacement can build up quietly in the background. And when someone hasn't truly transitioned into their post-career identity, even small moments like being challenged, overlooked, or disrespected can feel enormous. Therefore, Perry Tole allegedly refusing to move his truck could have felt in that moment like more than just a minor annoyance. It could have felt like a direct challenge to Sanchez's sense of self. For someone like Sanchez who may be struggling with a fragile post-career identity, that kind of resistance can feel symbolic. Not just annoying, but like a reminder that they've lost power, respect, and relevance. And when Sanchez may no longer feel grounded in who he is now, and even a stranger brushing him off can feel like the world is telling him his worst fear is true, that he no longer matters anymore. Especially not since he officially retired as an NFL quarterback on July 23rd, 2019. And the truck driver, possibly not knowing he was the former star quarterback and NFL commentator, would still cause Sanchez to feel invisible. That lack of recognition might have struck a nerve, not because he expected fame, but because it may have confirmed a deeper fear Sanchez may have already carried, that he's not recognized anymore and he's just another guy now. No special treatment, no status, no one cares who he used to be. And in that moment, being told no to not move his truck by someone who possibly didn't even know who he was might have felt like the final blow to an identity already slipping away. Sanchez allegedly running wind sprints in the alley at 12:30 in the morning may seem odd, but in context of that night, how do you think that fits in? Yes, it could be his lingering feeling to still feel like a football player by staying physically active. That kind of somewhat odd behavior could even be a form of coping with the psychological vacuum left by professional sports, and combined with his possible psychological role exit crisis and alcohol intoxication, How do you think that impacts his psychology? Right, doing those wind sprints at that very time he had that confrontation with that delivery truck driver may have reminded him physically of the version of himself he once was. Disciplined, socially powerful, in control, and admired. For that moment he was doing wind sprints, it probably felt like he hadn't lost anything. But that illusion is fragile. When he's clinging to past identity, especially under the influence of alcohol, even a small disruption like someone refusing to move their truck may have jarringly snapped him back into reality, triggering something deeper, not just frustration and anger, but possibly a desperate attempt to reassert the respect he felt he once had as an NFL quarterback. When the truck driver refused to move, Sanchez may have experienced what's known as narcissistic injury, a term used to describe the psychological pain that comes from perceived disrespect or humiliation, especially when it threatens someone's sense of who they used to be. In that moment, the conflict may have become less about how the guy parked his truck and more about reasserting a sense of control, respect, and superiority. And if someone's ego is fragile, especially if they struggled with anger issues or narcissistic traits, what do you think happens? Right, their response can quickly escalate. Instead of walking away from the guy nearly twice his age, they might act impulsively, even aggressively, turning a minor confrontation into something physical or dangerous. The truck driver pepper spraying Sanchez, but Sanchez continuing to advance is very telling. From a neuropsychological perspective, that kind of behavior suggests complete emotional hijack by what we call amygdala overdrive. That's when the brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, overwhelms the prefrontal cortex, which normally helps regulate decision-making and impulse control. In that state, logical thinking shuts down. Sanchez seems to have not been assessing risk, consequences, or how things might look later. People in this intense state often act in spite of pain, injury, or even fear without realizing how far they've gone. Now, what do you think happens when alcohol is layered in? Yes, it lowers inhibition, but also distorts emotional perception. It makes people more likely to misread neutral social cues as threats or slights against them. So if Sanchez was already feeling emotionally fragile due to his sense of identity and status feeling compromised, alcohol would have made him more reactive, more sensitive, and more likely to interpret the truck driver's refusal to move his truck as personal disrespect rather than a simple boundary. When someone doesn't or can't walk away from a confrontation, even when they have reason to, what do you think that says? Yes, it's usually a sign that something deeper or more profound is psychologically driving them.
Former New York Jets quarterback and USC standout Mark Sanchez was arrested Saturday morning after he was stabbed in Indianapolis.
And when that confrontation ends with felony charges and emergency surgery, it forces a difficult truth. Sometimes what looks like a bad decision is the result of long-standing psychological vulnerabilities, including patterns of poorly regulated anger, which in some cases may meet clinical criteria for something like intermittent explosive disorder, a condition marked by explosive aggressive outbursts that are disproportionate to the situation. In cases like this, it's not just about what happened in that moment, but also the emotional patterns that were likely there long before this event with this truck driver occurred. So does getting stabbed like that in the gut hurt? Well, what do you think? A stab to the abdomen doesn't sting like a minor flesh wound because it overwhelms the entire body. It's often described as feeling like a hot tearing pressure deep inside the gut, followed by a wave of nausea and panic. His muscles would begin to tighten automatically, like his body is trying to protect itself from the inside out, which may have resulted in that little bit of staggering and his apparent holding of the wound. Survivors of abdomen stabbings describe it as feeling like a deep punch that burns from the inside like a ripping sensation. Some say it knocks the wind out of you completely, while others describe it as an internal explosion of heat, pressure, and disorientation.
On March 30th, 1981, a would-be assassin fired 6 shots at President Ronald Reagan.
Back to the White House. Back to the White House. Rawhide is okay.
Sometimes those who are stabbed or severely wounded like that in their lower body mass in the midst of a confrontation don't even realize what happened right away. But why do you think that's the case?
Jerry Parr realizes that something's wrong with the president because he's having trouble breathing. He says, I'm having trouble breathing. I don't know. What's wrong? Are you having a heart attack? Is it your heart? And, Reagan says, I don't think so. And then he starts dabbing blood from his lips, and it's bright and frothy blood.
We want to go to the emergency room. George Washington. George Washington fast.
Right, this is because the nervous system is flooded with adrenaline and natural painkillers like endorphins, which can temporarily block the full sensation of the injury and delay awareness of just how serious it is. This is why those who sustain traumatic injury to the gut are able to walk, talk, or even run for a short amount of time after it occurred. It's because their body hasn't yet caught up to the damage. The brain is in survival mode, not fully registering the pain, just focused on getting away, fighting back, or finding some help before everything shuts down. Adrenaline flooded his brain almost instantaneously. Sanchez's heart starts pounding, trying to push blood to wherever his body thinks it's needed most. His breathing would start to become fast and shallow, and feeling like he's breathing through a straw. His legs will start to go shaky, and he will be able to start to feel the sensation of heat rising through his chest. But his hands go cold and numb. That's blood being pulled away from his extremities and towards his vital organs, his heart, lungs, brain, because he's losing blood and his body is prioritizing survival over everything else. That's a sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system in overdrive, making sure the most essential parts stay alive, even if it means hands and feet go weak and useless. His sight will eventually start to blur, vision narrows, hearing dulls, his body is prioritizing survival. He would not be focused on who's around or what just happened, but trying not to fall over and black out to stay conscious long enough to get help.
I'll be following the medic to Eskenazi, patient's critical right now.
As we see of the surveillance footage of Sanchez, which is probably right in the aftermath, as his adrenaline wears off and endorphins fade, intense cramping, nausea, and a sense of internal collapse set in. Breathing feels painful. Moving starts to feel impossible. But the physical pain that Sanchez experienced may be the least painful part of that night. But why do you think that could be the case? Right, because this event clearly hurts him on every level beyond just physically. Sanchez was finally building a post-football quarterback career as a commentator. Then this happens where it appears there was nothing like this ever before in his life.
Mark's wife Perry stars alongside Glenn, who plays a disgraced college quarterback,
causing him to now be known for this bizarre felony battery.
Sanchez telling investigators he did not know who did this to him or where it happened.
Told cops he has no memory of the incident.
All that rebuilding gone overnight, where if guilty he may lose his job, be sued for millions, and may go to prison for years.
Sanchez charged with felony battery, public intoxication, and unlawful entry of a motor vehicle.
It's remarkable that he's still alive.
Attorney Eric May sued Sanchez and his employer, Fox Corporation, on Tole's behalf.
This is a guy who's working his tail off, supporting his family, 69 years old.
It also targets Mark's employer, Fox, claiming it should have known about the sportscaster's alleged, quote, unfitness as an employee and propensity for drinking.
Because of some stupid, senseless, drunken parking dispute with a 69-year-old man.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care where you live. If you come into our city, commit violence, we will use all the tools at our disposal to hold you accountable.
Now in the comments, why do you think this was just a really bad night for Sanchez or an unraveling of something much deeper? Let everyone know in the comments below. Subscribe for more. And if you want exclusive content and channel perks, you can hit that join button below because your support makes all of this possible. He's a 38-year-old former NFL football player, and this guy is a 69-year-old truck driver. It's so ridiculous on so many levels. This story has gotten so much attention because it's completely ridiculous. What kind of former NFL football player attacks a 69-year-old man? And it's just mind-blowing that any young former NFL football player would get into any physical altercation with any senior citizen. It's completely ridiculous. There's no excuse for Sanchez at all in this. See you next time.